We're live, Mike. Say hi.
Although that shot will build heading into the weekend. Highs stay around 80 degrees, so it's quite warm and muggy. Near 60s of fog overnight tonight. So around 80, still a chance for scattered downpour on Friday afternoon. That threat for
My brother, my mom.
heading into the weekend, especially on Saturday afternoon. Temperatures cool back as low as 70s. From severe weather,
30 seconds.
Monday on High Country Radio. I'm really struggling, and I'm just looking for help.
I've had advice given to me, but it was confusing and didn't really work.
Recovery Talk helped me help a friend.
Morning, Mom.
I like it. You can call in and talk about your problem.
15 seconds in this first
Oh.
segment.
Looking for Recovery Talk helped.
10
Have a
seconds.
problem? Know someone who does? Call us. 828
5, 4, 3, 2.
Recovery Talk on WATA.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Recovery Talk. I'm your host, Jim Quigley. Recovery Talk is brought to you by Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is the newest auto shop here in the High Country. They're ready to fix you up with your check engine light being on, a little knock under the hood. The number to call is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. If you want to be a part of the show and want to call in, 828-262-1567 is the number to call, 828-262-1567. And this morning I'm surrounded by mics. We got Mike running the board for us, the oldest 25-year-old that I know, and we have my brother, my dear brother, Mike Register, that has been serving alongside me in the one-year program called Freedom Farm Ministries that we both worked for just over 5 years.
Yep.
We've been together, and before the show here, we were joking around on what Mike does. Everybody wants to know what you do, and isn't that a hard question to answer in the recovery world? What do you do? And Mike puts out the fires, and he literally is putting one out right now because I've been trying to get Mike on the show, but he is constantly doing something, and it's hard to get him. But when it's a fire, he runs to help. And we had a guest that unfortunately was scheduled to be on today and had to back out last minute. They want to come back and come on, and they have a lot to share with us. But had a hole. Mike came and put the fire out. So say hi to everybody, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mike, I personally know pretty much a lot of your story, but thank you for being willing to come on the air with us. For everybody watching Facebook World and listening right now on WATA, thank you for coming and sharing your story with us today. I did want to let everybody know that I finally broke and got a new phone, and I was trying to resist getting a new phone, but the one I had didn't have any possibility of running any apps on anymore because the memory was so bad. But anyway, so I got a new phone, and I got back onto some things using apps that I haven't been able to use for a few years now. One of them being Twitter. I went back onto Twitter, and I created a Recovery Talk Twitter site, or whatever you want to call it, Twitter feed, or I have not tweeted anything, but I've begun to follow a lot of other recovery-related topics and whatnot. So if you're interested in reaching out, you can contact us through the Recovery Talk Facebook page. Go on Facebook, just look up Recovery Talk, and like our page, pass it around. Or if you're a Twitter user, our handle is @RecoveryTalk1, @RecoveryTalk1. Mike. So, like I share with all of my friends and guests, tell us what your life was like before you found recovery.
Well, life was like a lot of people's. I was born in a Christian family, family divorced at a young age, around 5. Was in and out of church. My mother was a sole provider for us. My father kind of disappeared out of the picture. Would occasionally pop in, was not really a daily supporter in my life. Had a normal childhood through middle school and everything. Was active in sports, did pretty decent in school on grades. Somewhat hung out with what seemed to be the popular kids through middle school. but my life started taking a turn at about the age of 15. It was kind of the social thing to do back then, which was in the mid-'80s, was just to drink. On the weekends, we'd all meet and hang out in the parking lot and go to an empty field, do a bonfire, and just have a couple beers, and that's all it was just kind of a weekend social gathering. That went on for about a year. Somewhere around 16, maybe mid-16-year-old, started kind of getting introduced to marijuana. Was very afraid of it, thought that it was kind of, as they say, the gateway drug. But at some point...
Were you a 16-year-old that actually believed that it was a gateway drug?
Yeah, well...
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of unique, because usually they're arguing against it. It's not a gateway drug.
Yeah, well, at the time, not knowing much about it, just from what I was told by family or friends that it was, I eventually tried to start experimenting with it, and I found out very quickly that it was something I enjoyed beyond drinking, because at the time when I thought it put me in the right frame of mind that I always wanted to be in, to be the social, I guess, say, butterfly of the group. I always liked to cut up, but I didn't ever have the fortitude to step out of my own shell and feel needed. So I started using marijuana, and it kind of took me to that freeness to express and be who I thought I always was, but just couldn't do it in and of myself. And that went on for a couple of years and made it into, I guess, what would be your sophomore, junior year of high school, and started getting more heavily involved in cocaine and pills. Ecstasy and shrooms were a big thing back in the late 80s when I was involved in using. Got into that stuff pretty heavy, but always gravitated back to cocaine. I kind of made that next step up and got involved in that. Once entering into high school is really where life started taking a downward spiral. I stopped being active in sports, loved soccer growing up, and just lost zero interest in it. My interest in became seeking out that next fix, and that's when life really started spiraling out of control. I had a lot of excuses for why I used, being I didn't have my father around, growing up in a single family home, hating my father that he wasn't around. Even when we would get around, we always argued or fought. So that was kind of the driving force at that point that I said, okay, this is why I can use. But at some point I went from just being a recreational on the weekend users to coke and marijuana became almost a daily routine that I felt then I had to have to even function to get out of bed to go to school.
So just to get to school, you were this bad off?
Yeah. My brain was telling me by the time I woke up that, okay, where's my next fix coming from? And that became the driving force of what I wanted in life. So some point in the middle way through my high school days, I remember very vividly, I'd never heard of crack, never seen it, was with a guy in the gym, was looking for cocaine, and he threw me a small little matchbox, thinking it was cocaine, put it in my pocket, paid for it, went out, drove out of the school parking lot, opened it up, and there was what literally was a rock, but it was an actual rock.
We're about here at a break, but this is a pretty major part of your story. Stay with us. We'll be right back, and we'll pick it up right where we left off.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're fine.
I'm going to buy you some more time at the end of the show. Have a longer end segment if you want it. Yeah, that Ramsey hiccup was kind of cutting me some of your time, so I'll try to get you some of that. Let's see.
Justin Phillips is watching. Mike Moorhead's watching.
We got a 4-minute
Squirrel.
break.
Yeah.
Squirrel's watching right now.
Let's see, about a 4-minute break, and then we're going to be hard out at like 10:59:50. And then after that, we'll be right on track.
Okay.
That's 264-3924. Hampton's Body Shop at Wrecker Service. Best of the best for 7 years in a row, thanks to the confidence of our friends and neighbors.
You ever get asked about like the celebrities and their overdoses? I guess the only one I can think of right now is like Demi Lovato and the kind of stuff that she's going through.
I don't get it. I read that she in a no, she got out of a program and then overdosed, right?
Yeah, she's been in and out of programs for I don't know how many years. Got into one after this most recent overdose. Is apparently doing better. Sold her house that she overdosed in. And I guess is trying to get rid of any memory of that place. Both, figuratively and literally. I don't know, I can't imagine that though.
Being pretty famous. Yeah, I mean, obviously tons of people that struggled. You know what I just watched, and if you've not watched it, you being in, kind of music business, but you watched that Netflix documentary on Amy Winehouse yet?
No, I haven't. And that's the sad thing, though, is I feel
she
like
was so talented. I mean, she was so unique, man. I didn't really appreciate her until I watched the documentary. I mean, I know a couple of songs. Everybody knows Rehab. That's not Rehab she did. But, like, she was, you know what? She was an old soul like you, Mike. She really was.
No, her voice had more soul than any voice I've heard in some time.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't match that even if you
She
tried.
was a Jewish girl from England, and she liked to sing, like, blues music. And it was just like, and she was good, man. I mean, she was so unique in what she did, and she just got ripped apart by drugs and primarily crack cocaine, man. That was like her thing with her boyfriend. So, Pastor Dixon, blessings to you. DeVivo, we definitely, more and more you hear people's stories, different states, parallel lives. That's true. That's people saying things.
I was watching a short documentary on Stevie Nicks talking about how she would carry I don't know how much cocaine in her boots at all times. And she stopped because her doctor said, you have a hole about yay big inside your nose. And if you keep doing this, you're dead.
Yeah. You ever see the Chappelle Show?
Oh, no.
You ever see that?
The Dave Chappelle,
30 seconds.
Yeah.
The ones where he's got, who was the guy?
I know what you're talking about.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug. He's always, he's like,
Rick James. Rick James says that.
Rick James is interviewing, and he's like, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
All right, 10 seconds, y'all. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
We're back. We got Mike here with us, but before we get back into the story, Freedom Auto Tech, we got to give a shout out to our sponsor, the latest auto shop in town. Give them a call if your check engine light is on, you got your AC's not blowing cold, you got some kind of issue, give them a call. 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. Mike, so in the gymnasiums that we said, a guy handed you a little matchbox, had cocaine
in it. Yeah. Thought it was powdered cocaine, but it was actually crack cocaine.
Okay.
Yeah. Left the school, didn't know what it was, called him back, he explained what it was. I was kind of naive to it. Had kind of heard about crack, but that was really the taboo in my day. You were just, put it bluntly, you were a low life. That was for people that just were worthless in life that did stuff like that. And me being curious and obviously had paid for it, I did it. Didn't really get much off of it at that first time, but so to say, I think it unleashed a small monkey that then appeared on my back. Finished out high school, never really messed with it again. Continued to dabble deeper into the drugs, and the drinking scene still was an everyday thing. But I was a functioning, I guess you could call a functioning alcoholic drug addict. I still went to school, even though I was needing it to get up and to even have any kind of joy in my day. I was still making the appointments I needed to make. Got into construction. A lot of people in construction in my day were using marijuana and cocaine, so it just continually was a using state.
Part of your life.
Out of life. And there again, I turned my house into kind of the party house. I was always in a my group setting going through school, I was held back, and then I actually failed a grade. So I was about 2 or 3 years older than anybody I was going through school with. So I kind of played the middle. I hung out with the older crowd and the younger crowd, and we all would congregate together at my house. So I moved out.
But I have seen pictures of you from high school, and you look exactly the same. So I don't know how you do that. You just had longer hair.
Yeah, I cut the mullet.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you did have a mullet in that
yeah.
picture.
Oh yeah. So anyway, my house just became basically the trap house, flop house, where everybody came and just partied, and I still maintained a job. Was hiding it very well from my family, and that lasted to about the mid '90s. And I actually went to Wilmington, North Carolina, and hooked up with a gentleman in a tree service, and that's when I was reintroduced to crack cocaine, and that's when it took hold. It literally stripped me of any desires of what life had, from women to family to jobs to money, any self-respect. I didn't care anymore. The drug had literally taken over my life.
How old were you about this time?
I was probably about 25.
Okay.
When I really would say that was the main thing I focused on in my addictions. And yeah, it was just after that, I thought I was in kind of a downward spiral and actually getting into drug use, but that's when my life actually went in a downward spiral. Stopped going to work. I started cutting off communication with family. Didn't care about a girlfriend. Didn't care about anybody but myself and the drugs that I could get. I ran hard for a number of years there in Wilmington. My mother actually came up one time because when I moved there, I just left town. I was renting a place on the beach. I just grabbed some clothes and left. And she came and got me and said, you need to come home. We've got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, by the time she got there, I needed to do something because the guy I was with that was running the tree business, he had got arrested. I was already evicted out of the house I was living in. Basically, was jumping from couch to couch, and basically was burning those couches as I jumped from one to another. Friends were seeing there was something wrong, but they didn't know exactly what it was, and they were getting tired of my mess because I wasn't an honest or truthful person. So anyway, went home with my mother, lived with her for a couple of years, got somewhat, I would say, in my mind, cleaned up. I wasn't doing it every day. I was basically doing it every other day. And got back out on my own.
Yeah, 50% cleaned up.
Yeah, somewhere like that. In my mind, I'd like to say 50. It was probably more like 5%.
Yeah.
But yeah, so got back into it, and then actually was doing heating and air when I got back into my hometown, because other than the gentleman back in high school, I didn't know anywhere in town that you got crack from. And just happened that the guy I got working with a heating and air company got off work one day and said, "Hey, I need you to run me here. I'm going to pick up something." My mind was thinking probably marijuana or coke, and it was actually crack. And once I found out where it was and I knew I could go get it, that was it. Then the stealing and the more depths of my lies started coming out. I did a lot of horrendous things. I'm not ashamed of them, but I'm definitely not proud of them. But they are part of my story. I've stole from my family, financially, emotionally, objects from the house. I've stolen my mother's truck before. I've gone down and robbed from my family that lived out on the beach. And then I even robbed from dope dealers. I was at that point where I had no regard for anybody or anything other than myself and my drug. And basically that's just kind of the way I lived life. I was able to somehow maintain a small apartment, but it was running from month to month, paying Paul, robbing Peter, pay the rent 1 month, lie to the landlord, pay him next month, lie to the electric company. It was just such a circus and a head game that I was playing with.
Full-time job.
Yes, it was. And eventually it became too overwhelming, and my mother then actually found a crack stem on me, and she knew then that that's what was going on. She just thought that it was just, middle-aged guy, single, partying like all the other kids do. But then she saw what the true root of what was going on.
What you're saying here is kind of like what my buddy Paul had mentioned a minute ago. that, you know, dependent, you know, he's listening to your story, different states, but parallel stories, you know. There always seems to be a part of us professional drug addicts, you know, that we have our lives and we're like, I describe it as like that trick where people are spinning plates. You know, you got a guy who spins a plate, spins a plate, spins a plate, spins a plate, and then he's got to start rushing around to keep them all spinning. Yeah, that's what it feels like. It does when you're like doing what we're doing. You know, you know, writing bad checks, but getting money back into the account before it comes through, floating checks, all that kind of stuff, and then eventually you can't get to one of the poles fast enough. And it falls down, and then it starts the chain reaction. Yeah. So your mom found the crack stem. Was that, would you say, like a chain reaction started to fall down?
Oh yeah, it definitely was. And I'd gotten to the point by then that, you know, if she didn't catch it, it wouldn't have been much longer. It'd have been obvious because I couldn't have kept the plate spinning. I had so many lies out there that it was getting so far above what I was even capable of keeping going. It was just a matter of time, whether she caught me or not, that I was going to be exposed or would be arrested. You know, like you just said, you know, running checks here and there. I used to pick up receipts and go in Walmart and go around the back aisles, loading up a cart and then pushing the cart the opposite direction and walking right up to the cash register. I don't need this stuff. Go to Lowe's, do the same thing. I mean, I'm loading pre-hung doors on a cart with no money in my pocket but a found receipt for cash, and wheeling them right up to the store, not caring that I know I'm being videotaped. But
I've done that before too. So when we come back from this break, the plates have fallen, it's crashed down, and we'll get right back into your story. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's the High Country's information station.
Doing great. You got radio voice and everything. I'm going to start asking you to come in and do the voiceovers.
Yeah. MCN News. I'm Mike Riley. Police say they've responded to an active shooter situation in downtown
pretty long one right here, about 5 minutes.
From a Cincinnati station says 2 people.
Can you go to the bathroom or anything? It's right there.
Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley lashed out today at Democrats for making public confidential records on Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Talk about the public right to know.
Perfect radio voice, my buddy Paul says, from Georgia. Paul and I went to high school together.
And
yeah, okay. And we did lots of drugs together. And he's sober now, lives in Georgia. We've reconnected over the last year or something like that.
September 18th. She's the second oldest daughter of the late Reverend Billy Graham, who died in his North Carolina home in February.
What did it say about Amber Moss?
The daughter's got cancer.
Yeah, I was informed of that in a group I was in yesterday. She's got breast cancer.
Yeah, saw that this morning.
Franklin's sister.
North Carolina Public Schools for the 2017-18 school year were released at Wednesday's State Board of Education meeting. State School Superintendent Mark Johnson.
Teachers are working harder than ever. Principals are working harder than ever. School leaders and people in this department are working harder than ever.
Which White House official wrote an anonymous op-ed piece in the New York Times describing White House.
You must not have told Steven or Daniel or Sabrina you're going to be on the radio, or did you?
Nah.
I should have sent her messages.
Well, she knows all that. She doesn't have Facebook.
She doesn't?
Huh. No, she's not into the tech savvy.
Lucky her.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I stay plugged into it, but I check it maybe once every couple of days. And it's just more to see who's still alive, basically, for me.
I've actually outgrown, you know, I'm not saying it's snobby, but I've outgrown Facebook, you know.
I despise it. I got uncles who post nothing but political stuff. Yeah. I got friends who just post nothing but bitter political stuff. They're just mad all the time. There's some people who post, you know, like funny jokes and stuff, but other than that, it's the people that say like 113 days till Christmas. Everything I just don't want to see.
I keep on it because, I mean, it's real important for our program. A lot of people reach out, and then to share with my family about our daughter and upcoming son, and pretty much, yeah. So the stuff I used to go to Facebook, going back on, now I understand why people like Twitter so much, because you can control that much better.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you can get what you want to get, you know.
Same with Instagram.
you're not being friends with people on Twitter. You're just following whatever you want, whatever sources of information you want to follow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like Facebook. And the only reason I had it for a while, then got rid of it. And then my brother texted me. He's like, "Why'd you get off Facebook?" And I told him why. He's like, "But don't you want to see pictures of your niece and nephew?" I was like, "Well, obviously." It's like, if this is the only place you're gonna put them.
Yeah, you're on it still. Right?
Yeah.
Because we're friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I go on Facebook occasionally. I mean, I go on it for work as well, updating the Classic Hits Facebook page too. But the only reason I have it is for that, and what was for pictures of my niece and nephew. And then my brother remembered what Google photo sharing is. None of them go on Facebook anymore. So I was like, why did I get it in the first place?
Pastor Dixon says Facebook is for old people.
It is.
Yeah.
I remember back when I was in high school and my parents got Facebook, and we're just joking, guys, we need to find something new because our parents are on it and we can't say what we're doing this weekend anymore. No, it's definitely.
I still haven't gone Instagram. Everybody's got that. I've now done that one.
Instagram is a little more personalized Twitter, I feel like, because you see more photos. You get to follow exactly what you want. There's a little more ads involved. But,
Twitter's got a ton of ads that weren't there before. Yeah, that's one annoying thing.
I haven't been on Twitter in a while, but I like Instagram because a lot of my friends will post photos, and some of them are really cool. I'll follow the guy who plays the Mountain on Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
He's a incredible, world's strongest man. Just seeing it.
Is he?
Yeah, he deadlifted 950 pounds twice with ease yesterday. I was just just watching those, feats of strength and stuff. Just like, this is entertaining. I'll watch stuff like that, or what else? I'll just follow joke pages. Just kind of scroll through all of them. No, that's the fun part, though.
Fail Army.
Yeah,
just watch all the Fail Army videos.
Yeah. People skateboarding and falling. Not that I, like watching people's pain or anything like that. I'm not sick, but there's sometimes when watching someone fall because they're doing something stupid, it kind of puts a smile on your face. All right, 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
10 seconds.
From severe weather meteorologist Steve Monday on High Country Radio.
5, 4, 3, 2.
And 96.5 FM.
We're back with Recovery Talk. Recovery Talk's brought to you by Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is the newest auto shop here in the High Country. Give them a call if your engine light's on or you need something looked at in your vehicle. 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. Mike,
Yes.
So the plates have all come down. Your world of just holding everything up and all of the anxiety and energy it takes to do that on a daily basis all come crashing down. I think that's where we left off.
Yep. So once all that was exposed and everything was out in the open, and even at that point, I didn't let it truly 100% be known how bad off I was and how deep it really went. I was just giving what they knew. I was just confirming some of the things that they said they knew, which was that I was messing with crack cocaine and that I was messing with marijuana and that I was drinking and that there was obviously some type of drug issue or addiction.
I often say to people, man, when they're caught in a relapse or something like that, they'll go over and I think you've heard me say this to people. I was like, look, man, can I just stop you for a second as we're going through this? Unless you can really tell me how ugly it really is, we're really not doing anything right now. You really got to get a point to where this is how ugly it really is.
Exactly.
And it's not because I want to hear it. It's because you're still trying to conceal something and you're still trying to get me to think a certain way about you by not telling me.
Yeah.
And that's your problem. Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
No, you're exactly right. For me, I was trying to protect my self-image, even though it was in the crapper.
Yeah.
I was still wanting to put on a facade of I'm okay, and didn't want you to really know how bad it was. And then I didn't want to accept myself how bad I truly was, even though I knew I was not going to accept how bad off I was.
How old were you about this time?
I was probably right around 28, 30, somewhere right in there. Went, talked with my mother, gave her just the bits and pieces that I knew that she knew. Didn't become 100% honest how bad it was. Through my pastor at the time, she reached out to him. He actually, matter of fact, reached out to a Christian organization that's here in Boone. It was a 72-week program. Got me involved, and the only reason why I agreed because
72 day.
Or 72 days, excuse me. The only reason why I agreed to go is because I wanted my situation to change, and I wanted people to get off my back. So I agreed. Was not coming up here to do it for no other reasons than that. I had no desire because I still thought I could do it a different way. But being where I was at the crossroad I was at, no job, no place to live, family harping on my back, I agreed to go. Came, loved the program, really enjoyed the teachings. There was some NA and AA that came along with the Christian-based teaching as well, really in depth. And in my eyes, I really excelled. I like my drugs. I poured my whole self into it. So I graduated the program. Family came and got me. Went home. I lasted maybe a week. Right back to the crack cocaine. Floundered around. Not to get all the details, but it got worse. The stealing, the lying, the underhandedness all got worse. And about 3 years later, there again, my mother pointed it out, said, "You've got to do something. You need to go back to rehab." And knowing about the place, knowing how it ran, thought, yeah, I'll go back there. It was pretty cool. It's comfortable. I know what it's like. So, I'll just fall right back in where I left off, and that's what I did. They got me back in the same rehab. Got there, and it was like, only thing was from the day I left to the day I got there, only 3 years had passed. But it was just like I never left. I fell right back into the study. I did anything they asked me to do. I went above and beyond what they were asking, because I thought if I did A, B, and C, D had to come next. And then still wanted to change my situation. I didn't want to change my life because I still thought I could run my life. So I stayed, graduated, family came and got me, went home, and I lasted maybe, well, at the time I actually had broke my foot. Let me back up. I broke my foot there playing volleyball. And at that time I kind of felt something inside of me calling. The only way I can describe it is, but I didn't know for sure, but I thought, okay, is this how it feels to be called by God? I felt something saying, stay longer. Didn't think it was going to happen because I broke my foot. I'd done an application to be what they called like an extended student. Filled it out, didn't think anything would come of it, and actually got accepted to stay on longer. So I stayed about another 2 months. And I don't know really what happened, but at some point I thought, okay, this is enough. I'm good. It's time to go home and get my life back on track. So family came and got me, went home, and I lasted maybe 2 weeks. I was actually riding a bicycle with a cast up to my knee to the dope house. But I thought, I'm going to do it different. I'm only going to go on Friday. I'm only going to spend $20, and I won't touch it again until next Friday. And that lasted for a Friday.
A Friday.
Yeah. Second Friday, it was every day from then on out.
I could have told you that was a terrible plan.
Yeah, but at the time it was a great plan, in my mind.
It's amazing what we tell ourselves.
Yeah, it is. I'm real easy to convince myself.
I would have liked to seen a picture of that. You riding a bike with the cast up past your knee?
Yep, past my knee. Or right up to
How
the
do you
base of
even
my
do
neck.
that? Was it a stiff cast?
Yeah, it was.
You just
from
hold
the
a foot
toes.
out?
Yeah, just held it out and pedaled with my heel. Yeah. I'm driven down the road with a just a funny story. A 32-inch, back then it wasn't a flat screen, it was the big back TVs on the Earth Cruiser down the main highway in my town heading to the pawn shop.
Whoa. With the cast on?
No, this is after the cast, yeah. But I mean, it just shows how sick I was, I mean, it was my mother's TV out of her spare bedroom I was living in, and I'd turn the radio on to make noise at night and keep the door shut. And that lasted about 3 days until she heard a commercial and it wasn't on the same TV she was watching. She opens the door and the TV's gone. So anyway, jumped right back in. The addiction was getting worse. The depths of which I was willing to go to get the drug were getting worse. There's, again, stealing from families, stealing from my grandmother, and anybody that would leave me alone in their house, stealing from them as well. Floundered again for another 3 years. It's pretty amazing. It was a 3 years intervals. And somewhere around 2009, or excuse me, 2006, I went over in South Carolina, Spartanburg. Mother found another Christian program. Went over there, 72-day program as well. Fully submersed into it, doing the NAAA, stepping out, doing a little more than even asked, because I was always a performance junkie. You know, I wanted more. I could do more. I was OCD. I had to do it, and I had to do it a certain way, and I applied that into what I thought was my recovery. Did well there. I actually met the director of the ministry at the time, or actually was on the board, and he was actually trying to open a sober living home for men coming out of that program that needed somewhere to go, that weren't ready to go home, but still want to live in a safe environment. Asked me would I be a part of it. I said yes. Moved in, ran a house of about 12 guys. Not long after we opened that and we got it running, we opened another, what was a double-wide trailer, one street back. Took responsibility of that. I was actually getting my own small handyman business back up and running. So things were progressing very well. It seemed like at that time I was going to church, I was going to NAAA, I was, working a sponsor, I was working my job, I was overseeing the houses, doing the ABCD, not allowing God to work in my life, but wanting to still do it the way I thought it needed to be done. Did okay for about 2.5 years, and at some point, one evening, I thought, you know what? I came here because I was addicted to crack. Drinking was never a full-time occupation. It was an occasional thing. I can go drink.
Of course you can.
Yeah. And I'm going to have just one. And I did that for about a month. I'd go on there every Friday. I'd go sit at the bar, have one beer. And about a month of doing that every Friday, I thought, you know what? I'm doing so well. Let me pat myself on the back. Let me drink liquor. And long story short, don't remember anything about being at the bar that night. Woke up at a stoplight with a state trooper knocking on my window. I'd passed out behind the wheel at a stoplight with the state trooper sitting behind me. Pulled over, was obviously intoxicated. Ended up blowing 3 times the legal limit. Looking back, blessing in disguise. It was God doing what I couldn't do for myself, which was putting me somewhere where I needed to be. Spent a couple weeks in jail. Was bonded out, lost the home I was living in, lost a job with the ministry, had run my business back into the ground, destroyed a pretty new car I'd gotten through working. So, lost everything. Didn't want to give up and go home. I stayed around the area trying to grasp and get things back running. I lasted about a month or so and finally broke down because I was sleeping in a dumpster behind a Denny's in the middle of winter.
In the dumpster?
In the dumpster. It was actually the recycle bin dumpster, but
probably cleaner.
Yeah, might have looked, but smell wasn't. Yeah. But at that time, and even sleeping in there, I didn't think that I truly had found the bottom. But literally one day I was walking down where the drug area was on some train tracks, and I found myself what appeared to look like to me was, I felt like I was in a valley looking up at 2 hills, each on one side, thinking, how can I ever get out of this? Reflecting that this is where my life has brought me, to the train tracks, hills on each side. And I felt like I had nowhere to look at that point but up. And I knew it was going to be only God, but I didn't know exactly how that was going to work. Called the family, went home, floundered around for about 3 more years before I actually committed, because I was still stuck on, okay, God can be a part of it, but I still have rights. I still have.
We got a break coming up. Yeah. Multiple 3 years programs. We're gonna pick the story right back when we get back.
Property maintenance perfection.
What the heck happened?
Manufacturers with the advanced features like clear-cut decks and personal attachments make yard maintenance a breeze. And low monthly financing keeps your money in the bank. For small lawns,
hi, honey.
mowers are the answer. Featuring
Hey, Margaret. Hey, sis.
Starting engines. Your lawn will be the envy of the neighborhood. Visit Boone Rental at 1818 NC Highway 105 bypass or call us
Wife's just to the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
That's always fun.
Did you know there's a fantastic thrift store on the
Remember
Boulevard
that trip.
bypass in Boone? It's operated by
Oh, Bert.
Ministries.
What's going on, Bert?
Go directly back into ministry.
Justin Burchak.
No, Burchak?
He's watching.
Hey, buddy.
You know, he's like 3 years sober now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's recently renovated with
2 or 3, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Doing
Right.
good.
Yeah.
I remember him living in one of Robbie's campers across from the center for like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Those FEMA trailers.
Yeah. Is that when Michael was over there?
Michael was over there once.
Mm-hmm.
Bert was over there once. I think Bert was there. Yeah.
is open for business. The local guys we love are back. See, right here at BooneDelivery.com.
Seriously? That's great! All our favorite restaurants are keeping it local and letting Boone Delivery bring food right to our doorstep.
The great thing is they're easy to work with. They take cash and cards, have a wide delivery radius, and we already know them. They're better than ever and local.
BooneDelivery.com and follow on Facebook and Instagram.
At Girls on the Run, we believe that girls have the power to change the world. Volunteer coaches teach valuable life skills to 3rd through 8th grade girls.
So, what do we think we got? We wrapping up 11:30?
Yeah, so about 11 minutes when we get back, maybe?
11
12.
minutes.
So fast forward to the end.
Well, I mean, we're right at.
Transition to here.
Is that where we're at?
Stand by.
Yeah.
So we're near the end of our time together, and where we're at in your story is that you've had multiple times of going to recovery centers, and for some reason, 3 years of nonsense in between recovery centers, and you just left the recovery center after a couple of years, and you've gone back home 3 years of more mess.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened next?
It finally came to a point, and I thank my mother and my family profusely for it. Didn't at the time, but now looking back, it was the catalyst that saved my life to get me where God needed me. Family basically said that we love you, but you can't stay here. We're not supporting your habit. We're not supporting you killing yourself, and we're not going to support you possibly even going to jail.
What they call tough love.
Yeah, but that's what I needed, because the whole time I was using what I now have found out for myself. I was using my family's love as a pawn to get what I wanted. And I'm so glad they did that. And I'm not saying they cut their love off from me, but financially and supporting me in somewhere to stay and bill paying, stuff like that, they said that enough's enough. You have to leave. Either you go somewhere or we take you down to the homeless shelter, and we're going to love you from a distance until you get better. And actually,
one of the toughest things for parents to do. If you're listening out there, you got a loved one, we understand it's the toughest thing, but here's just yet another story, if you've ever been following this show, of that's what it took.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. That's exactly what I feel it takes. Because I didn't love myself enough to do anything about it, so they did. So basically, what ended up happening then was I had actually, when I was in Boone, I'd ran across the former Robbie Colley of the Freedom Farm Ministries. So I kind of had a rapport with him back at the other Christian program I went to, and I knew he was opening up Freedom Farms. I'd actually come and visited from the last rehab I was working at. Had come up, spent a weekend looking at what he was doing. It was very in its infant stages. It was just a safe house. So I thought, that's where I can go. So I called Robbie, and of course, like y'all probably heard a lot of the stories. I said, Robbie, I need to come get help. And he asked some questions, and I gave the best answers I thought he wanted to hear. And he basically said, son, you're not ready, and hung up. Yeah, Robbie's famous hang up on you. But looking back, it was like a lot of people say, he was testing my willingness. How far was I willing to go to get here? Pretty mad that he hung up, but next day called back, said, Robbie, before you hang up, let me explain. And he said, go ahead. He said, you got a minute. Told him what the deal was. He said, okay, son, I'm giving you 3 days. Get here or don't call me back. So I did. Took Friday, Saturday, tied up some loose ends with my family's help. Family drove me up here, and that was the beginning of being at Freedom Farm Ministries. I was beat, I was wore out, and I was at the point in my life where I knew 100% and it was accepting 100% of how sick and how bad I was. And it was nobody's fault but my own. Situations helped lead me to the drugs, but ultimately I made the choice to take the drugs. and that's something I never confessed in and of myself. I would say it outwardly, but inwardly I was going, yeah, but I'm telling you a line just to get you off my back. But that's where I was. I was tired, and I knew I couldn't do it. There was no way I could spin it. It was either I had to be all in or I just needed to go home, and I was ready to be all in. I told God at the time before I got here that, you know, I promised the Lord the only way I would leave Freedom Farms at the time was if the Lord asked me or Robbie Colley said it's time for you to go. That's how sold out I was, and wasn't even here, didn't even know what the program looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew this is where I needed to be. So I came and went like everybody else in the safe house. Regretted it, hated it for the first week or so. Old man popped up after about a week, started trying to connive, scheme, trying to spin it to fit what I thought it should be, you know, and got called out on a lot of my BS, and realized that, you know, okay, you're going back on what you said you do with God, which was give up and just be willing to listen. So I did, and I started hearing about this one major word I never really heard about, which was surrendering. Mm-hmm. Surrendering to God's will for my life and living daily as best I could, surrender to what He may have for me. Because in my mind, it's not I surrender, God, because I tried that. All right, Lord, I surrender. You're going to have to do it. Well, then the next day, I'd get up and I'd try to take a little bit of it back over. Yeah. Where now I truly live my life to where it's a daily surrendering. I have to make that choice each day that I'm going to follow Christ to the best of my ability through His teaching, through my relationship, and walk the direction that He has for me. Was it easy? Do I do it perfect? No, I still fail miserably today. But I have a willing heart to grow in His grace and His mercy, and I do that through maintaining my relationship, through, you know, my Bible study, my devotions, my quiet time, and surrounding myself with other like-minded people who want the same. And so I went through the program, went to restoration, was asked to come back to the safe house and actually continue cooking. That's what I did while I was there. I did that, and was there, I don't know, maybe a month or so. Some transitioning took place while I was there, and then that's when you came on board as the director. Worked with you as a houseman out there, and then always kept, you know, first priority is Jesus in my life, and then second was, what does He want out of me? And you know, yeah, I've been here ever since.
I actually witnessed some of what you're talking about, because I was here as you came and you're going through, but like I witnessed you go into this mindset, like you were saying you did before, of I'm at a program and I'm doing it better than anybody here, and because I'm doing it better than anybody here, I'm better than anybody here, and you started to go that direction, and I know that there was a time where you broke through that, and it was probably one of my fondest memories of my relationship with you, is seeing that happen. And then we share this type of story. We both came to Freedom Farm, both knew about recovery, both knew about God, but knew enough to get us in trouble, knew enough to say the right things to people, knew how to perform a good way, but it wasn't down in here, it wasn't changing us, you know. We were just wanting to get people to think about us a certain way. And you, like me, after you had kind of like a aha moment, you know, where things started to change, you're like, I'm staying here until something moves me from here, you know. And so you faithfully have been serving here at Freedom Farm you've been here for 5 years. Part of that was you coming through the program and then serving here, and so a little bit of like life now. You're waking up every day, and what would you say some of your highlights are of the day? I mean, Mike's, for those of you listening and watching, he's now married. He's a stepfather to 3 kids and
2 grandchildren.
And you've been married how long?
3 years this Christmas.
3 years this Christmas. And I'm going to say this honestly, I've never seen someone take the role of stepfather as seriously as you. You have, I mean, it's been pretty amazing, heartwarming. But yeah, I mean, you said, you know, I stay in the Bible, I do the things I need to do, but But I'm going to tell you, you are like the quintessential person of service. Your life, you know, I could see you as my friend, but and co-worker, co-laborer, but your life is service. I mean, it's pretty much, and you don't get caught up in the woe is me when it comes to service, which is easy to do, especially in this type of thing. So what's the future look like for you, Mike? In the last couple minutes that we got. And you know, you don't have to tell me what I want to hear because we work together and I count on you for so much. So when you think about the future, though, what do you think about?
You know, in my mind, it's my daily walk with God and waking up each morning wanting to see what He has for me. I don't look far out into the future. You know, it's not promised to me. If I wake up, then I praise God for that, and I just become eager to see what He has in store for me. Working here, you know, they say, there's a lot of guys I've heard them say, you know, do you do it for yourself? I don't, in a sense that that's why I'm here. I do it because I want to see men's lives change that are in the bondage of addiction, and I want to see that done through the power of Christ. Don't get to always see it done, but at least I'm here to help plant a seed, and that's all we're all called to do. One of my favorite verses, it talks about, the Lord says, feed my sheep. He didn't say fix anybody. So as long as I'm feeding him the Word of God and I'm walking along with him, I in return receive blessing. And it keeps me humble and reminds me of how powerful God is and how He can take somebody as sinful as I was, and still am in some areas. You know, I'm not perfect, but
you're not.
No, that's my wife. And see that also work in other men's lives. It's a huge blessing for me. I want to be a blessing to guys, but it's more of a blessing for me.
Mike, you've been a blessing to us. We're down to the last 30 seconds. You know, for those of you watching and listening, pass the video around. You know, this whole show is just to give hope and help for hurting people. People need to hear about, you know, lost causes like Mike, which I'm sure you were described that many times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 10 years of trying and not working, but glad to have you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Tune in next week for another show. Hopefully we'll have our guest back.
The most misused substances in the U.S.
Thanks, man.
Staff
That was easy, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
putting an end to this
Absolute natural, Mike.
Yeah.
medication practices. We encourage all of our customers to follow your dosage plans or medications
Hand me
and
the phone, would you?
Never share your medication and dispose of your medications.
Sure.
We have